I'm Shena Jagtiani, and I head communications and PR at the Museum of Art and Photography, MAP, in Bengaluru. Like many of you watching today, I also have great memories of being at concerts and live gigs. From the buzz of standing in a queue before entering a venue to the pure euphoria of being part of a crowd singing along with strangers. Rock shows and live gigs certainly had a thrill and a certain vibe. From the Rolling Stones to the Scorpions to Roger Waters and Elton John, from Deep Purple to Sting, these are just a few that enthralled us over the years. Reliving some of these moments as we go down memory lane and chatting with me about the current music scene today are Venkat Vardan from DNA Networks, Aarti Rao Shetty from B Flat, and Carlton Briganza from Opus. Hi, welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I'd like to start by asking you, Venkat,
Yeah.
you run many businesses.
Mhm.
What was different about organizing concerts and what is special about DNA to you?
Well, I think when I started out, um, you know, we started doing these MTV Top Video Countdown. And I'm talking about now 1986, and there was no cable TV those days, so we put it on Doordarshan. And whilst I was doing that, I came across a lot of artist managements who were interested in looking at India as a place to come and do shows. And I was not ready to do a show like the shows that were being done. I wanted to do events like how it was done abroad in the same scale, with the same values and attributes, so that our audiences can experience it exactly as it were anywhere else in the world. So I started down that path. It was difficult in the beginning, uh, but as you go by and you do one after the other, automatically each one talks to the other, and you get more opportunities to present uh, concerts. And for me, being a rock music FNDO myself, so that's the route I took of choosing the artists. But well into my career, we also did a lot of commercial pop artists who did exceedingly well. And further on, from a DNA perspective, when the IPL came about in 2008, uh, we started doing entertainment. And that led us to go into the other leagues to bring what we do from the concert business into the stadiums for the audiences attending these games. So it was a logical extension of what we were doing. So in a way, I'm doing the same things that we've done for the last 30 years, but now it's more entertainment in sports than in concerts. And one of the big reasons for that is, unfortunately, there are not many venues left to hold concerts in India.
Right. Yes, yes. Aarti and Carlton, this question is more for you. You both are musicians. If you could tell me a little bit about your musical journey and did that really change in any way when you became entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I'd say that there was a big shift in my musical journey. I mean, I come from a family of musicians. So I was singing from the time I was a little girl. So it was very logical that I would start performing at some point. But before that, I actually started behind the glass in the recording studio with jingles and voiceovers. I was a little cautious about getting out there on stage. I had a sister who was, who went professional when she was just a teenager. And
Right.
she really wanted me to get out there on stage, and I was too shy. I was quite happy behind the glass and behind the mic in a studio. I did that for quite a long time until I moved to Bangalore. And in Bombay, of course, I did have a band, but it was always just private gigs with friends at a party. Put in a lot of hours of rehearsal, etc. But it was never anything commercial. After I came to Bangalore, I found that this whole jingle thing that had been such a part of my life just died because advertising was in its nascent stages in Bangalore at the time,
Right.
and people were still going to Bombay for all the work. And in fact, that affected my work as an advertising professional. And I decided, by in the early 90s itself to stop being a part of that industry. And I met Gerard Machado. And someone told him there's a singer from Bombay. And he just called me one day at my office at J. Walter Thompson. and asked me whether I'd sing. I was so desperate to sing. I said yes, never having sung a jazz note in my life.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I don't know anything. And my taste in music was very different at the time. I was listening to very modern electric jazz, Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, and all of that, Zawinul, Joe Zawinul, and all of that. He said, it's okay. I will give you the music. And he used to give me cyclo style sheets of lyrics and audio cassettes with Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan. So he actually introduced me to the wonderful world of jazz standards. And I started performing jazz in Bangalore before anything else. So I came to be known as a jazz singer. That was lovely, and I did lots of gigs and a lovely journey of live concerts, meeting wonderful people. And then in 2005, when we became partners in Take 5, the lovely watering hole that was on Racecourse Road, my husband became a partner with an old friend of Venkat's, in fact, Sunil Deshpande, whom we call Chewy. Everything changed, when we decided, when Take 5 closed down at Racecourse Road, we decided we have to let the legacy go on. We looked for a place in Indiranagar where we live and opened it there. It was fabulous because it was the first bar place to go to in that residential colony.
Yes.
We started to do music twice a month, live concerts twice a month, just on impulse. I'd pick up the phone and call, seasoned musicians, senior musicians in Bombay, who I had known, all these years, and request them to come. They were so happy to know that there was a club, a jazz and blues club over there. So we had our first concert with Louis Banks, our second concert with Ranjit Barod. We had some amazing shows. If there was a visiting musician from abroad, someone would call us. It began like that, very, very, and grew very organically. And we separated the restaurant from the performance space, so that families could go and dine on the terrace, and those music lovers who wanted totally focused, uninterrupted music could do. We soundproofed the place, etc., did the lights and all of that. So there was a full shift. I was suddenly faced with having taken a decision to make a club. I didn't even think about my own music career. It was so exciting to curate and bring in these wonderful musicians that I became an entrepreneur. It was just by default. This whole role that I play today as a curator, music curator, it just happened. It sort of surprised me. I didn't even understand the amount of work involved in it. So passionate about it. So yes, that was the big shift for me.
So mine is a very similar story to Aarti. I mean, come from a very different background otherwise. But so just to go back, I'm a Bandra boy. I have grown up in and around music, with the Bandra culture, the parish, the singing in church, and the talent contest that happened there, and a lot of them now in their own right. But went out in the Merchant Navy. And in between, sang at concerts, both classical and otherwise. But got married, and Gina was in Bangalore at the time, and we moved to Bangalore in 1998, and then started a small events company and entertainment company. A couple of years down into that, I was playing the lead in West Side Story, and there was a boy called Shiva who said, I have this place, and why don't we look at it and make it a cafe. And we looked at it, and it was much more than what a cafe could be. So we said, let's get some music going, let's get some art and some theater and some blah blah, and we put that whole piece together. Opus was a derivative of the octopus. We had like many tentacles, and we did everything from food and drink and music and theater and stuff like that. And it started off as a very community driven space that people hung out, people jammed. I remember, me and Karan used to do something every night, as a small jam thing. We had more musicians came on, and it became a kind of a cultish space. I mean, I know B Flat also was very much that, which had some really big names that eventually played. I mean, we had Steve Smith that played. I mean, Steve Smith was the drummer from Journey. We had Spyro Gyra play at Opus, just a jam thing. We had, I mean, of course, the usual Pentagrams and the Parikramas and Soulmate and all of those that played in that 12-year period that Opus was on, and it became something that as Aarti and me, and I think that was the important part, that also being a musician and being from that space, they were more friends than artists that we would hire. It was more like, you're playing in my backyard, or you're playing at home, and we'd always jump on and jump on with bands and do stuff with them. So it was important that as a venue owner and whatever curator, they also looked at you more as a friend than anything else. So that's how I think which kind of separated us from the rest of the music venues.
Venkat, I wanted to quickly ask you, Bangalore is known as the original rock city. What really is it about rock music and the people of Bengaluru? Like, why do we love our rock music so much versus the other cities?
I think earlier days, even now for that matter, the Bangalore is a multilingual place, right? Though we are Karnataka and Kannada is the hometown language, but the main communication amongst people is still in English. And in our college days, all of us grew up listening to recorded music from the radio, whether it's from the US or the UK, and it invariably used to be rock music. And we had Bangalore Palace Grounds, which is a very big venue at that time, and it did not have any restrictions. So in fact, in Bangalore, we debuted with Deep Purple, with my good friend Ajit Nambiar, who came to support it, who's another big music, and he's got his own band now. And that really started the following. To give you another example, when Iron Maiden came, we did them 3 years in a row. And even now, if you go onto the website, if you see their private jet, they all are wearing our DNA shirts. And it's a picture from Bangalore that they put on their official website.
Wow.
So many artists who have come, be it the Rolling Stones, be it Roger Waters, be it Bryan Adams, who has come a number of times, Enrique, as I told you earlier, then Mark Knopfler. So we had a great venue. So people used to ask me, why not Bombay? Why not Delhi? So then I started adding on, events to go to Bombay and to Delhi. But Bangalore always had a good crowd, not just coming from Bangalore. People came from Chennai, from Kerala, and various places. And that's how Bangalore became, by default, concert capital for rock music.
Yes. Aarti, do you think the music scene has changed? What do people currently listen to? If it's not as much rock anymore, what is it now that gets in the crowds? Or what was the genre before B Flat shut? What was the genre of music that got in the most crowds on any particular night?
Nothing can shake the Bangaloreans' love for rock.
Okay.
If anything, it's just gotten stronger with the independent music scene. People, like Venkat said, we've all grown up being influenced by the music that we heard on the radio, the audio cassettes that people used to bring in for us when they came in from abroad. All of us had our collections.
Yes.
We had our collections of albums and of mixed tapes, both, right?
Yes.
We used to make all these compilations. So it's something that is too close to one's heart and too much part of one's, formative years, and it's influenced our musical taste. So rock is here to stay. But what is really beautiful is we have indie rock. We have indie music today. So you have the musicians that play everybody's classic rock favorites. Like we did last night at Venkat's RCB Bar and Cafe. We had one of Bangalore's premier, actually the premier band from Bangalore, rock band, Thermal and a Quarter, did
Oh,
a classic rock night
Oh,
just
how
for a
nice.
change. I mean, they've got 12 albums to their credit, maybe even more. Everybody knows and sings their songs, but even they grew up listening to rock.
Yes.
So they did just a classic rock tribute night. So we did a lot of independent rock, and we would just pepper our curation with classic rock nights, because I always felt that I need to encourage people to do their original music, and then every once in a way give them a bonus of a classic rock night. So we did it that way, and we pushed the indie music out there, strongly influenced by rock. I'd say our classic rock nights definitely filled the house. Anything to do with nostalgia filled the house. So if it was a soft rock or a classic rock, it was there. So you could do a tribute to Simon and Garfunkel, which is very soft rock, or America, Bread. Or you could do a tribute to Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden and AC/DC, all full. And at B Flat, I think it's something to do with the ambience. We also really filled the house with our jazz nights. Our jazz and blues shows were all sold out. So this is how it was for the early years. And I'd say in the last 5 years, we really pushed indie music. So then a lot of other kind of musical cultures came through within the genre of contemporary pop, where poetry was also as important as, and the way the younger generation sees it. So we saw a mix of, in fact, the audience profile basically expanded because of independent music. So indie music worldwide is a lot about the singer-songwriter.
Right.
And the independent singer-songwriter could have any number of influences. So we tried to showcase all of those. So some came in from a rock background, some came in from a straight up pop, some came in from R&B and soul, which was so beautiful. A few came in from jazz, not too many, but it's lovely because it was culturally super rich. And they would come in either solo or with a band. So the Bangalorean is so well educated musically, that you could take these giant leaps, these giant risks, because you never looked at it as a risk.
Yes.
They were always really curious about what was going to come next, what concert was going to come next. It continues to be, really continues to be rock in Bangalore. Even now, when we're curating events at RCB, we find that when we do the rock nights, and these are early days also for them showcasing live music. So I'm also steering it a little bit in that direction initially, because the idea is, hi, everybody, here's this beautiful new place. Come check out the place. So, and as is always the case in Bangalore, things spread by word of mouth. That has not changed. Even though social media plays a huge role today, and we depend on it, we really do depend on it today. It still spreads by, it's people who say, have you checked out this place? I saw this great gig last week.
Right, yeah.
Or have you seen that? It's a beautiful space. So that's how it just grows, and it's very reassuring at a time when, as Venkat said, there are very few venues today. It's very reassuring to know that the people haven't gone away.
Yeah, and we're still looking for things to, places to go to enjoy this.
That's right. That's right.
Would you say it was the same at Opus as well, Carlton? Like rock was still the mainstay when people chose a song to sing at the karaoke night? Or again, was it a mixed bag?
It was really a mixed bag. I mean, it was really a mixed bag. Opus actually, Opus actually was everything from Carnatic to ball singing to we had jazz concerts, we had rock, we had people. So we stayed away from the heavy rock or from the Bollywood scene, but but we did have people who would mash up Bollywood even with Western music, and it was really as Aarti said, every concert defined the crowd, or every night defined the crowd. We would have quiz nights that had their standard tables on every Thursday. We had the crook nights, which had actually almost names written on each table, and for every concert it brought in its own set of people. I mean, whether we did whether we did jazz or whether we did indie folk or whether we did Ramamani and Carnatic, and so it was completely a mixed bag of what you'd get. We probably put out a schedule for the week, and that was how we did it.
Right.
So yeah, and I other than the few times where I mean, people would ask for Bollywood, which I would say no. People kind of knew what they were getting at Opus, and we never really ran into a situation where we would get people who didn't know what they were coming for. So it was more a fun go and vibe, kind of a shack that had some great music, and yeah, so in that sense it was. I don't know whether I could define it. The only thing that was defined was the octopus, and it was many faceted and multi tentacled, and it gave us the justification of being able to do everything. So yeah,
Lovely.
yeah. So that was what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Venkat, I would love to ask you about your guitar collection. And, if there's, I mean, how did that start and how many do you have? And is there any one particular that is really special or stands out for you?
So before collecting guitars, when I used to go to see the artist, they used to give you a laminate which gets you backstage. So I started collecting that from the beginning. God knows how many of them I have. So then I said, okay, what else can I do which is something different? Because whichever promoter's office I went to, all these tags would be hanging on their door or wherever. And I said, why not ask these artists to give me guitars? So every artist who has come and performed, and I think I'm the only guy who has got an autographed guitar from the Rolling Stones, because
Wow.
they never signed a guitar. I am also not signed. Unfortunately, Charlie Watts is no more with us, but I have some very fond memories. The best guitar that I obviously like is the Stratocaster, given to me by Mark Knopfler. So there's only two of them in the country.
Wow.
One he gave me, and he's a big fan of Sachin Tendulkar.
Oh, lovely.
So I set up a meeting with him.
Yeah.
So Sachin gave him a bat.
A bat? Yeah. Okay.
He also has a bat. And so Mark Knopfler gave him his the other Stratocaster. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. In fact, I can see one right behind you, the red one.
That's the.
Oh, that's the one. Okay. Oh, that's lovely. Yes. Yeah. Aarti, I wanted to ask you, B Flat was a platform and a stage for, as you mentioned, so many independent artists and musicians. And what was your main motivation behind having that space for people to perform at?
My motivation. I think my primary motivation is, to me, it's very personal. Music is bigger than everything. The power of music. Yes. And so very quickly, having gotten understanding of the city of Bangalore and its people, just, from my friend circle alone, from concerts that I had attended, and also from hosting concerts at Take 5. And those days was just jazz and blues when I began curating. I understood that people are hungry to listen to quality music. And so I thought that if I have the power to do it, if I'm enabled, then why not create a dedicated music platform and do it in the most professional manner that I can do within the budgets that I have. So I pitched to the partners that I wanted it to be soundproofed. There was a bit of a to and fro tussle over that one because alarm bells ringing immediately. They said, oh, how can we afford that? I said, I'll figure it out.
Right, yes.
And I immediately got in touch with, a very respected sound vendor in the city, Acoustic Control, Sanjay Mudarta. And I said, help, tell me where I can buy all this wood woolen, glass woolen, soundboard and all, and tell me if I can get competitive quotes. It's very helpful. Yeah, he helped me a lot. He helped me with the sound design. It was a big challenge because that place was full of columns. It's not a space that you would ever choose for a music venue. You would want a nice clean space where your audience can, get a straight up view of the stage. We had all of those challenges, but we had chosen that space because there's an amazing terrace up there for the restaurant.
Yeah.
And we just, we found something that we could do within our budget, and Sanjay helped us design the actual acoustic space. It worked. There was no formula. It worked because people love music.
Yeah.
But I was very particular that we be consistent with the quality and consistent with the frequency of shows. You can't start something and then stop because you can't lose your momentum.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
you have to keep going. You have to dedicate days that you're going to do it. And for us, it was a dedicated venue. So it was all the time. And we were doing a minimum of 150 shows a year. And we ran straight through for almost 11 years. So it's impossible for me to even rattle off names because there's that many shows.
Wow.
And it was a proper concert venue. You could stand on the curb, look up at the building and wonder where B flat is because you couldn't hear anything. The soundproof.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for the crowd.
It was really, and so that was really, really good. And so we didn't get in college bands. I have to be honest with you, because we were doing a professional sound venue. We didn't bring in college bands and Nankatai bands, as we say in Bombay, at all. We set the bar really high and we kept it at that. And the semi-professional bands that wanted to go to the next level were taken in as opening acts. We would give them a half an hour slot before the main act came on. And so what happens is then you get a regular platform to play.
Yeah.
All the musicians knew that they could come there consistently and play. So they could hone their skills, We did every possible genre. We did pioneering work with Carnatic music. We had kacheris also, not just fusion gigs. We broke those stereotypes, because there's a whole school of thinking that you can't defile the space. It's a very Brahminical way of looking at it, by having alcohol and food. You have to sit down and watch it. It's like sacred space on stage.
Yes.
When a kacheri, it is like that, We broke those because my logic was, wouldn't you pop a CD in of T.M. Krishna with a nice single malt in your hand or a glass of wine when you're in your home? And wouldn't you turn up your speakers and listen to, Ravi Shankar?
Yeah.
You would, right? So why can't you then step out of your house and do it in our very, very beautiful venue? We will give you the same wine and the same single malt.
Yeah.
This was the thinking. But it was we were taking a risk. We often had discussions like that. My husband, who was, running the space, would ask me, and I'd say, I think it will work. And it really did. And in the fusion space and world music, we've had Tawfiq Qureshi and Selva Ganesh and George Brooks. We've had Rama Mani. We've had Suma Sudhindra, Geeta Navale, our local senior classical musicians, and all these amazing well-known names from outside play.
Wow. Yeah.
Without blinking.
Yeah.
I remember the first time Rama Mani came, it was just to be a supportive parent because her son was doing a concert at B flat. And that table asked for tea. It's the bar.
Wow. Wow.
So I basically personally went into the kitchen and I said, there must be tea leaves here. You people must be drinking chai. The staff must be drinking chai. So can you please, serve 3 cups of tea down in B flat? It looked at me like I was a freak. But then eventually Rama Mani was on our stage and she gave us a kick-ass concert. It was fabulous.
Oh,
So
wow.
it has been such a beautiful journey. And I'm just really privileged to have had people like Louis Banks, George Brooks, Selva Ganesh, and all, that level of musicians, and amazing international jazz musicians as well, play on our stage. It's just so Ziska Khan. From the French Reunion Islands to the United States of America, and Senegal and Europe, of course, we've had the most amazing bands play. We've had, people getting off their seats and just dancing and not able to get back into their seats because the music is so good kind of gigs, which is something I think even Carlton is very familiar with. His space was also very much that kind of a space. So multiple genres and all serious, no frivolity.
Venkat, I wanted to ask you, do you have any, moments, iconic maybe moments or memories that stand out from all the concerts that you've organized through DNA?
I possibly need a couple of days to speak about it. Yeah, many memories because we would spend time with the artists, before the event, after the event, on the way to the airport. So lots, I mean, like some of the interesting meetings I've had, it was especially with Sting. I did not realize how Indian he is. He knows so much about yoga, about meditation, and it was a great conversation for learning with him. Stones was another great example, each one of them being very, very different. And Keith Richards, after the concert in Bangalore, liked India so much, we decided to stay back for a week.
Oh,
And,
lovely.
no, actually, I got into trouble because he canceled the Bangkok concert.
Oh, okay.
So, the promoter from there is calling me, get him onto the flight, get him onto the flight. Then when Shakira came with her father, and I think they were coming in from Spain, and the King of Spain had given him a dagger, which got stopped at the customs in Mumbai.
Oh.
So she said, no, I have to wait with my dad. So of course I made some calls, and ultimately we did not, we had to leave the dagger behind. But that was an hour spent, where the luggage was being rolled over. And so a lot of artists, I mean, even with Aerosmith, they wanted to see ride an elephant. So we had to bring an elephant to the West End Hotel.
Oh, wow.
That was fun. So many things, even with Elton John, he's got like 100 shoes and 100 glasses placed in his dressing room.
Okay.
To choose for that particular night. So that was another interesting moment for me with him. So many stories. I mean, Iron Maiden were great. Metallica was great. Enrique was really a lot of good fun. Shakira, of course. Black Eyed Peas, I enjoyed a lot. They were very humorous people, and so they like to do the show that, like, how they do it their way, which we did not want to, but we didn't come in the way because we wanted that creativity to be left to them. So, had all these kind of conversations. Can you do this for us in India? But one thing, like even what Aarti was saying, I told them, please, I don't want you to do any namaste here or try and play an Indian song or, ask me to get Indian band. Just people have paid and come to see
you.
To see you or your the band.
Yeah.
And that time the people did not have the habit of buying tickets. So we had to force that, saying that you buy the tickets and come. And then of course we have done concerts here in Bangalore and Bombay and Delhi up to 40,000-45,000 people. So I think rock is still the favorite genre of music for me and for, I think, most of the fans. So yeah, that's it. But there are many memories. 30 years is a long time.
Yes. Oh, lovely to hear these stories. Would you say your first love is music or cricket?
Music.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Carlton, I would love to hear about Jukebox Jammies and how it's evolved, especially now during the pandemic.
That's an interesting one because it's literally something that started out as a joke. I was doing a 12-city tour with Kyuki, and Rahman had discovered some talent, and they told me back these talented kids across the country, and they'd fix 12 gigs. And in the middle of that tour, it was March of 2020. Kind of we'd finished 6 gigs, and they postpone the next 6 because they said, I mean, they were talking about this thing called COVID, and nobody knew what it was. Yeah. And I went off to Sri Lanka for a couple of days and actually took the last flight back because I didn't think this thing would last more than a week or 2 weeks or whatever. They said, no, get back. We don't know what the situation is going to be. And literally, I forced myself. I was forced onto a plane. And if I hadn't, I probably would have been in Sri Lanka for maybe 6 months or whatever. The airports had shut down. I came back, and the next day or two, Modi said, it's the Janta curfew, and a week everybody has to be in their houses. And I, as a joke, went online and I said, since the Prime Minister is not allowing me to leave my house, I'm going to do a half an hour kind of a request thing in the evening. Come get a drink with me. At first, maybe first day, 10 friends of mine came online, and I was on a Bluetooth speaker and my laptop, and I did maybe 1 or 2 songs. The sound was really iffy, and the connection was bad. And in a couple of days, and I said, I'm going to do this 9:30 to 10:30 kind of slot every night till I can leave my house. And people kind of held me to it. You said that you're going to do it as long as the curfew is on. And so in a couple of days, we had 30, 40, 50 people. And by the end of the week, people were telling people and getting on. And then I said, I need to tweak this product because people are coming in for it. And I had somebody come in, and we had Dwayne, who is a really big sound engineer in Bombay. He said, I'll help you out with sound. There was another guy, and everyone is putting up their hands and saying, you're doing this, you're doing it. People are enjoying it. It's becoming like a nice small community, and people started helping me with different things, and I was multitasking on screens and replying to comments and singing and doing all of that. And I realized that, initially I was like looking at a screen, do you see me? Can you hear me? Whatever, like you normally do on a Zoom call. But eventually I realized that it started looking like what Opus was 12 years ago. And in those early days, you were forming a community, you were interacting with people. It's just a different platform. And every night was it was getting better and better, so I went for about 80 or 100 days straight every night, and lockdown 1.0 and 3.0, and people were saying that you said you're gonna keep doing this, and I did this. And in fact, Aarti and Sunita also were there, and one of them we did a Xavier's alumni thing where we had everyone from Sunil Gavaskar to Shobha De to Cyrus Brocha, and all of them came on, and Rajdeep. Yeah, so it was something that really evolved. I managed to get bands in from the UK, from Canada, from Australia, and it became exactly what Opus was. It became an online version of what it was, and the parallels were quite amazing. I got some sort of recognition and an award that said Lockdown Hero. Yeah. And I didn't realize how much of a difference it made to people who had nothing to do during the day. Till somebody in Canada, a girl wrote a long letter, a message to me on Facebook and said, I'm writing this letter today because my mom was a huge fan of yours, and she was terminally ill, and she used to get up every morning to watch you, because that's Canada. And she said, I'm writing to you today because my mom passed away, and on her lap, on her iPad, was your show still playing. So it kind of freaked me out a bit to know that you were touching people in various kind of spaces, and that was amazing. So I still do it now. I kind of do it more of a hybrid thing. If I'm doing a live gig somewhere and it's an interesting venue, I kind of live stream it as well. So it's still there, and I've managed to kind of condense my whole setup into a traveling bag, so I can just plug in if we have a good internet and it's there. So yeah, that's the Jukebox Jammy story. It started off as a joke, but it kind of took over a lot of people's lives. So yeah.
Lovely. I just have one
Yeah.
last question for all three of you. It may be looking into a crystal ball, but what do you think is the future? I mean, going down the road, maybe the next couple of months, the next couple of years, will we have more live gigs and concerts, or what is really happening in the music scene? Venkat, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I think music is here to stay, despite what we're going through, and this is globally, not just India. Many parts of Europe and US are open, and I have friends there are starting to do concerts. At the RCB Bar and Cafe, which is why we have made one night a week, a live music night, and I think that will continue. But again, you don't know what's going to happen with this situation, the pandemic. And crowds are going to be allowed into the stadiums. That will dictate also, how the music is going to grow in terms of, I'm talking only live music. But
Right.
each one of us is making an effort to see that it's up there and happening. As of now, with my own bar and cafe, which is getting good traction thanks to Aarti, she's doing the curation for that. And at the stadium, we are doing the entertainment. Like right now, the World Cup is going on, so
Yeah.
the live entertainment there. Of course, it's more skewed towards the UAE audience, and yeah, so we have to tailor make and see how it goes week to week, month to month. That's what, in my opinion, is the thing stand.
Okay, great. What are your thoughts, Aarti?
I mean, music is here to stay, but I wish the situation could be better. It's things plummeted because of COVID,
Yeah.
and suddenly not just musicians, but even the entertainment industry entirely, and the F&B industry. These are industries that just collapsed because and sports. They are dependent entirely on numbers, on people, on footfalls. So coming back from that is going to be very, very hard, because a lot of establishments even had to down their shutters. They couldn't cope with, And can you imagine how it must have been for the cricket matches to have a green screen match, so to speak. I mean, empty stadium. You're playing in a stadium, but there's nobody there, and then you just have somebody fills in a picture of audiences, and you pipe the music of the applause, so that even when you're watching it on television, you just try to imagine that you are in an actual live stadium, but you try to pretend that you're not watching something where those poor chaps are just playing alone on the field,
Yeah.
So I'm the same with music. Online concerts started during the lockdown, and there are still a lot of online concerts because the number of musicians outweigh the number of venues, or at venues at different levels. There just aren't enough. I mean, there's so much of talent out there, sports and music, but you need more places to be able to showcase what you have. So for that, I really believe that one needs more government support. One needs laws to be put into place that support live performances.
True. And Carlton, your quick thoughts?
I might differ a little with Aarti on this, but I just think that this COVID or the situation has for me taught me that you can't really plan too much ahead. You can just you can just deal with the situation as it's been given to you right now. Do things that kind of do things differently. Don't expect the world to go back to exactly what it was. If you, try something different. Like, I stumbled upon this whole thing, but what I'm saying, I know people who waited 2 years for the world to go back to what it was and are still waiting. So it's probably not going to be the same way before. You have to think a little differently. You have to adapt to a situation that is thrown at you. and nobody knows what the next 3 months is going to be or the next 1 year is going to be. So just be a little creative, a little more innovative with how you're going to display that talent of yours, and if it works, if it works, great. If it sticks, great. If it doesn't, just try something a little different. And I think that for me has been the biggest learning out of this COVID thing, because honestly, I don't think anybody here knows what's. I mean, people have died overnight, and there's no waiting for it to get back to what it was, and that's.
Okay, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up now. Thank you for your time, and thank you for chatting with me, with all your lovely stories. Yeah, have a good day ahead. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having us. Pleasure. Bye-bye.